Hey guys, welcome back to Big Hit Central. Today we'll show you 20 of the best kick punt returners in NFL history. Let's head into it. Number 1. Devin Hester. Both a kick and punt returner, he excelled at both, scoring 14 touchdowns in his career. He was voted first team All-Pro 3 times and second team All-Pro once, and he was second team at the 2000s All-Decade, which exposes why there should be a mid-decade All-Pro teams. He'd be the clear first team pick on that one. He came along in the middle of the 2000s. His career went from 2006 to 16, and while his peak was the best of the decade, he didn't have as many years of service in it. 14 times he was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He holds the NFL record for punt return touchdowns with 14, and also have 5 kick returns for touchdowns for a total of 19. He led the NFL in punt return average twice, and led in touchdown returns 3 times, and later tied for the NFL lead in KR touchdowns twice. Number 2. Gale Sayers. Still the top kickoff returner ever, with a 30.6 average and 6 touchdowns, with a 6.6% of his total kick returns. He was also a great punt returner, but didn't have enough attempts to qualify for the NFL's leaderboards in that category. Sayers led the NFL in kickoff return average of 31.2 yards in 1966 and 1967. He had an average of 37.7 yards per return, but Travis Williams was ahead of him for the NFL lead. All one needs to do to appreciate Sayers is watch his highlights on returns. He was simply amazing. Number 3. Rick Upchurch, a 4-time All-Pro and 4-time Pro Bowl, and was first team All-Decade for the 1970s and second team All-Decade for the 1980s. However, for the 1980s, it was for the position of kick returner, and he didn't deserve that. His specialness was a punt return guy, not a kickoff return guy. That said, he led the NFL in punt returns 3 times, and took 8 punts back for scores. Did get a benefit from being on the leading edge of the live ball era for punt returners due to rule changes in 1974. Number 4. Billy Johnson. He was All-Pro 3 times, and went to 3 Pro Bowls and took 6 punts, plus 2 kicks back for scores. He was first team All-Decade for the 1980s and second team All-Decade for the 1970s. The reverse of Rick Upchurch, like Upchurch played in a live ball era. Number 5. Dion Sanders. Sanders truly passed the eye test and returned 9 kicks, 6 punts and 3 kickoffs for touchdowns, and did it when teams tried to avoid kicking to him. Had he been a full-time returner, his numbers would be stunning. He was the All-Decade punt returner for the 1990s. Number 6. Jack Christensen. Smooth, fluid, and fast. Christensen owns a 12.8 yard punt return average, tied for best all time, and had 8 touchdowns, including 4 in 1951, 2 in each of 2 games. Adequate and not often used on kickoffs, he was a Hall of Fame safety and still ranks with the elite in that position. Number 7. George McGathy. McGathy is tied with Jack Christensen for the highest punt return average ever. Like Christensen, he too was fast and smart. Number 8. Cordarelle Patterson. Patterson is performing pretty well in an era where most of the kickoffs are touchbacks due to the NFL rule changes designed, we suppose, to limit kickoff returns. Can he keep it up and still get 30 yards a pop and a few touchdowns over the next several years in this dead ball era for kickoff returners? Time will tell. Number 9. Josh Cribbs. A tremendous kickoff returner and a fine punt returner as well. Good on special teams coverage too. He holds the NFL record for kick returns for touchdowns with 8 and returned 3 punts for scores for good measure. He was the first team kick returner for the 1990s All-Decade team. We'd rank him just a hair behind Patterson as the second best kick returner ever. Patterson of course is still active, and we will see if he can maintain that rank with the adverse climate for kicker returners he faces. Cribbs, by contrast, was in a golden era for returners, where conditions post-1994 rule changes were ideal. Number 10. Travis Williams. The Roadrunner was unstoppable in his short career. His numbers rivaled Gale Sayers, but fell just short. His speed set him apart rather than the moves and cuts, and he had a good size at 6'1 and 210. He scored 6 touchdowns in just 102 kick returns for a rate of 5.9%, second only to Sayers' 6.6%. Had he done it a bit longer, we'd rank him just behind Sayers, but we think Patterson and Cribbs nose him out, but we admit it is debatable. As it is, he led the NFL in kick return average twice, including an incredible 41.1 yards in 1967, and is still the NFL record, and 4 touchdowns, still tied for NFL record for 1 season. Number 11. Mel Gray. A 5-time All-Pro and was second team 1990s All-Decade choice as both a kick returner and punt returner. It's amazing a guy with his resume is 11th on this list. It shows that in this case, a league goes past the first dozen or so picks, like on some of our other lists. Gray led the NFL in punt returns twice, and kickoff returners twice, and returned 9 for scores, with 6 being kick returns. Number 12. Dante Hall. The human joystick finished with 14,386 combined return yards and 6 kick return touchdowns and 6 punt return touchdowns. He was really fun to watch. He was the first team punt returner for the 1990s All-Decade team. He was also the second team kick returner on the All-Decade squad. He was All-Pro once and a second team All-Pro twice. Number 13. Brian Mitchell. Handled kick and punt returns for the Redskins, Eagles, and Giants and amassed a 23,330 return return yards, and 13 touchdowns, 9 on punts. He was All-Pro in 1994 and 1995, and a second-team All-Pro in 1991. Number 14, Desmond Howard. All-Pro in 1996, he led the NFL in returns, yards, and still the NFL single-season record, average, and touchdowns. The punt return quadruple crown. He was a decent kick returner, but a star as a punt returner, ending his career with 8 punt return touchdowns. Number 15, Dave Maggot. In the Brian Mitchell mode, a third down back and a player who handles all returns. He was All-Pro in 1989 and 1990, and second-team All-Pro in 1995. He has 8 touchdowns to his credit, 7 on punts, and 13,996 return yards. Number 16, Eric Metcalf. A fine slot receiver at times in his career, Metcalf is one of those shifty players who handle both kick and punt return duties for his teams. He took 10 punts back, 4 scores, and 2 kicks. He was decent as a kick returner, but it was his punt return skills that were most impressive. Number 17, Leon Washington. Washington returned both kicks and punts, another of the dual returners, but Washington excelled at kick returns rather than the punt returns, which is a bit unusual. Number 18, Darren Sproles. 7 punt return touchdowns and 2 kick returns for scores for Sproles, who was a fine third down back as well. There is little difference between numbers 13 through 18. In a sense, they could all be tied for 13. Number 19, Tamaric Maneuver. Maneuver had a short career due to some off-field issues, but when he played, he was explosive. He was a big guy, 220 pounds for a returner, and like Travis Williams or Cordarelle Patterson, his speed made it hard for coverage units to handle. Number 20, 2-Bits Homan. Not much is known about Homan. We first learned of him via Danny Daly's book, The Pro Football Chronicles. It explained that some researchers suggest he had the highest punt return average ever, though unofficial, at 13.6 yards. What do you think about these returners? Who do you think is the best one? Let us know in the comment section. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.